My name is Patricia King. I am the mother of Elijah Timmons. My son's name is Elijah Edward Timmons III. He is my fourth child. I grew up in Brevard, North Carolina, where I was about 8 years old before my mom remarried and moved us to Georgia. So then we moved to Decatur, Georgia. I went to school there, and I ultimately came back to North Carolina, met my husband, married him, and then he went into the service. We had our first two kids prior to marriage, and then by the time I was pregnant with my third child, which is Trinace, my middle daughter, we ended up in Tennessee, is where she was born. And then a couple years later, I had Elijah in Atlanta. 3 years after he was born, I had a set of twins. Elijah's siblings were his best friends. Like, they were his... I just think that they really enjoyed each other. They really had a good relationship. All of my children, none of them had a bunch of rivalry and fighting and things like that. Now, they say that each other got on each other's nerves, but I didn't recognize that. I became a single mother really fast because my husband at the time was in the service. So I ended up having to, be the mom and the dad when he was deployed and all the things. So, by the time I had the twins, my marriage was at a place that it wasn't going to survive, and it was hard. It was hard to come to terms with that, simply because I knew that having as many kids that I had, it was going to cost me, regardless. So, making that decision to live separate lives was really hard, because we had 3 girls, 3 boys, and the twins were boy and girl. So it was hard to make a decision to separate the two. And so I opted not to allow the kids to be separated, because Dad's idea was, let me have the boys, you have the girls, we'll swap in the summer, which sounded good at first, but then it didn't make sense for them. They didn't want to be separated. So I was like, I'll just keep them together. You can get them for the school year, and then we'll rotate, and I'll get them for the summer, and then the next school year, and then you'll get them for the school year. So that kind of worked out for the most part, until they all started graduating from school. My oldest 2 at least graduated. Elijah was he was, from birth, he was the type of person that was his own person. He always had his own way about doing stuff. I mean, I can literally tell you that when I went into labor with him, I was home cleaning, I guess nesting and just cleaning things. And it was 3 of them. And I just got a real bad headache that day. I go to the doctor. They're like, your blood pressure's high. You want to go to the hospital? Let's check you out. I go to the hospital. They put me on a monitor, and they say, well, you're not dilated or anything. We're going to wait about an hour just to watch you, and then we're going to send you home. And so I called one of my cousins. She came over. She's sitting with me, and about 45 minutes in, the nurse was like, I'm going to check you one more time, and then we're going to send you home. She came in, she checked me. She was like, yeah, you're not really doing anything, so we're going to send you home. She left out the room, and she might have been gone maybe 20, 30 minutes before I noticed that I was not going home. Like, I was like, something is happening here. By this time, I've had 4 kids, so I know what that feels like. And so I'm ringing the bell, and my cousin is going to the door to tell somebody they need to come and check me. When I say, he just popped out. I mean, he literally just popped out. And when I looked down at him, he was laying with just looking me in the face, and his arm was up in the air like this, and he was just looking at me. And I was like looking at him, and I thought, he was just the cutest kid. Like, he just had his own little face, a brand new baby. You know, some babies have to grow into their look, and he didn't. And so I immediately started calling him dude, because he looked like a little dude. He had features of a grown man. He just had this little masculine, cute face, and he just was Elijah from day one, and dude from day one. Growing up, I remember people would say, how old is that little boy? And I would say, he's 2. And they was like, there's no way he's 2. He's so little. He was riding a bike without training wheels, or like a big bike, climbing on stuff. I mean, you name it, he was all boy. And I was nervously always like, no, get down, stop. And he was just like, I got it. And I mean, little, telling me, I got it, I'm good. And I'm like, oh Lord. So even when I was nervous, he was always strong. He was always, I got it, you know? And when he started dating, I think that was the biggest issue for him, because when teenagers date, they're not fully developed enough to make decisions when they think they are. And I think that's where we started butting heads, because I'm like, you know, dude, you can't just, these girlfriends don't matter right now. You need to go to school. And he was like, nah, you know, this is not what I want to do. And I'm like, this is what you got to do. And so we would butt heads, because he would think like, well, I'm just going to move in with my girlfriend. He got 16. He was like, I'm just going to move in. I'm like, you're not going to move in. That's not what we're doing. So I reached out to the mom, and I was like, my son can't stay with you. But her daughter was older. And so she felt like, you know, when my daughter's older, it's okay what my daughter's doing. I'm trying to get her to understand that this is my son. And even though your daughter's out of school or whatever she's got going on, my son still hasn't. And I told him that. And we butt heads behind it, because, you know, of course, now he wants to do what he wants to do. And so as long as he was going to school, I kind of was okay with him at least going to school. And I told the mom, I was like, this girl's going to end up pregnant. This is going to be a thing. Like, we need to put a stop to it. And of course, I was viewed as the person that, you know, just was being difficult. And so, sure as I said it, she ended up pregnant. And I think that he really didn't connect to understanding that type of responsibility from the beginning. And by that time, she had the baby, and I want to say maybe a year later, she's pregnant again. And so she had the second son. So the first son's name was Zion, Sir Zion. And then I named the next son Emilian. It was something about him. I liked the word, and I just thought that would be a neat name. Maybe he'll be a millionaire, you know? So, and it's so crazy, because you do have to be careful what you name your kids, because he is all about it. Like, he wants to work. He wants to do all the things. He wants to be a millionaire because of that name. And so, you know, as the years went on and he started growing up and not really having any rules or any, you know, he's thinking he's an adult at 17 and 18 years old. So, I mean, he was an adult, but he didn't have the tools to be a prepared adult. So he started getting into trouble. You know, I told him, like my mama told me, she's like, if you get in trouble and you go to jail one time, that'll be the only time I get you out of jail. So I'm letting you know, if you do anything that you shouldn't do, you're going to pay your own consequence. Don't call me. I'm not giving you money. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And that's what she meant. And so that's what I meant. And so that first time he went to jail, I can't remember exactly what it was about, but I went down, got him, and then I told him, you know, if you get in trouble again, you're on your own. So the next time he got in trouble, I want to say, I think that I wouldn't take any phone calls from him the first couple days. I wanted him to sit there and see, like, you know, I don't have to get you. And so eventually that wore me down. Nobody wants their kid in jail, you know. So I made it my way to get him, and I think he was involved with maybe juvenile services or something like that. And that kind of kept him under wraps for a little while. And then as he got to be an older adult, it was driving charges and things of that nature. And then it started being arguing and fighting with the girlfriends. And so that stuff. Not to minimize it, because I was really on him about behaviors and the way he did things and talked to people and that stuff. But because he had started going to jail at such a young age, he had the mindset of someone that was institutionalized. Like his brain just started working that way. And so he was the kind of person that was like, if I do something and I get in trouble and I go to jail, then I'll suffer my own consequence. And so for a little while, I had to let him suffer his own consequence. I was not going to run and get him every time he got in trouble. And so, and it wasn't like running around doing the crazy. It was just, getting caught up in situations where he didn't know how to stop and remove himself. You slap me, I slap you back, And so it took a long time for him to be able to grow up. And by this time, he's got 3 sons. And so his biggest thing was to keep these boys acclimated with each other. They were going to be at each other's houses. They were going to sleep, in the same spaces, and they were going to hang out at grandma's house and go to grandpa's house. Like, he was adamant about keeping the kids connected and together, even though they had 2 different moms. And so I just respected him for that, because a lot of people don't do that. I mean, regardless of what he did, as far as like his behaviors with the women, he was adamant that his children were going to be raised together. And we had those conversations, when by the time the youngest boy at the time of his death was born, he was actually living with this girlfriend outside of being at my house. Like he would go babysit the kids while she went to work and vice versa. And so, they all seemed to have got along, They all loved him, and so they all wanted to do like what was best that he asked, So I really appreciate all of them for doing that. Prior to him passing and during the time that he's gone, they've all really been good about keeping these kids together and having them spend time together, and so that has really been a good thing. But I think if I have to say anything about Elijah and how he was changing his life around prior to his death, I was so proud of him. I was so glad that he seen what I was saying to him along the way. Again, he's not my only child. There were 6 of them. I had 7. 1 passed during birth. And then my youngest son, that was a twin, passed away 6 years prior to Elijah passing away in a car accident. That was, I think, the break of Elijah and all the life that he had prior to. Like, I think it just ripped him right apart. That was his best friend. That was his confidant. That was his everything, his brother. And it was 3 boys, but my oldest son had moved away to Atlanta, and he was, into social media and doing all his life. And so they kind of got separated, and the younger 2 boys were just the youngest 2 boys. And so I just remember when he walked into the funeral of his brother, it just really changed his life. Like, just seeing that, as it would, he collapsed, and he had to literally be carried out of the funeral. And I just remember that, because I think that's when he really, life was really real to him, and that things could happen. And then he's got these sons, and he wanted them to do better, or be raised better. Not that he had a hard life, because irregardless of me and his dad being separated, he still had mom and dad, And then after me and him split up, I met the guy that I was with for the 25 years that they were. I think Elijah was maybe 4 or 5 when I got with my ex. And so they always had father figures. They always had my brother. They always had my ex at the time was their stepdad, and and they loved him. and everybody kind of respected each other. It was just, you know, we had our things, family have stuff, but ultimately, like, we really was, you know, people that wanted to do better in our life, break generational curses, and just be a different family unit. So I think as the kids got older and started having their own kids and everybody started moving along, I think, and after Quavante passed away, me and Elijah got really close. And I just remember him saying to me, you know, I would say, you know, if anything ever happens to you, you know, that would really mess me up, you know. Losing your brother, like, it almost killed me. And so I couldn't imagine if something happened to you. And I remember him specifically saying to me one day, Mama, nothing's never going to happen to me. I'm never going to lose you. You're never going to lose me. I'm never going to go anywhere. He's like, he was so funny. And he was like, you know, you're going to get a phone call that I done had to defend myself, but I'm never going to let somebody take me away from you. He's like, I'm not going to be in the streets. I'm not going to be doing anything that I shouldn't be doing. I'm working. I'm going to take care of my kids, and you're not going to have to worry about me. And that sticks with me because that's exactly what he was doing till he died. You know, he gave me his word, and that's exactly what he was really trying to do. And, you know, we notice, I think, things with our kids, like other people can't tell us, oh, your kid is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We know when our kids are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, as a parent, you know when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I can honestly say he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, you know. When he, this particular night, it was Thanksgiving, November 24th, 2023. And I had been cooking literally for 2 days to prepare for this Thanksgiving dinner. So his girlfriend, the mother of his youngest child at the time, was in Charlotte with her family, and she was going to leave there, come with us, and then we were going to leave from my house and go to his grandmother's house, who was in Hendersonville, where this all took place. We were actually going to go from my home to Henderson County to this grandma's house, and then from her house to my mom's house. So we were really going to make a circle around the cities and then come back home. I just remember that night he was dancing all over the house and taking pictures and kissing on all the kids. And for a split second, I'm thinking, like, why is he taking all these pictures? He's like not a person that takes a lot of pictures. You know, he just really, you know, not a person that takes a lot of pictures. And it just went across my head, just real vague. And I was like, I didn't think more about it. And then he started playing gospel songs and gospel music and talking about his brother and how his brother was always talking about God and all those things. And while all this is happening, I'm thinking in my head, like, wow, like, you know, you tell your kids about God, or you tell them about church, or you tell them right from wrong, and even if it's the bare minimum, they remember, you know. And he was talking about how his brother was talking about God and how he felt like God saved his life when things happened. And so he was just like, Mom, I got to play my favorite song. And he started scrolling on his phone to try to find the song. And he played Never Would Have Made It by Marvin Sapp. And to know Elijah, you know that he was really funny, and he was always like mimicking stuff and doing just funny stuff. And he was in there singing the song, you know, like really into the song, but he was kind of mimicking. And so we were all laughing about it, like, you know, just picking on him and laughing and stuff. And I'm steady making the last bit of the banana pudding so that we can fix it and then leave. And so he's like, Mama, go ahead and get dressed so we can take these pictures. Come on, take these pictures. And I was like, I ain't taking no pictures. I ain't dressed. I don't want to take pictures. And he's like, man, come on. So he told, I forget, I think it was my granddaughter, one of them, or his sister. He's like, come on, take this picture. And he grabbed me by the neck. And he's like, baby, come on, take this picture. And they took the picture. And that was the last picture that I took with my son. So he went into my room and laid across the bed and was telling me to get dressed and stuff. And I was like, when I finish, I'll get dressed. So he went to start taking his shower and getting himself together. He got dressed, and then so I guess his girlfriend at the time, Shay, showed up from Charlotte, and we were already loading up the cars and getting everybody together. And I had gotten dressed, and everybody started loading up in the cars, and right as, excuse me, I'm about to pull off, one of the kids asked, "Hey, where's Dude at?" Well, they called him Snoop, and then I called him Dude. But one of them asked where he was at, and I said, "Well, he's in the other car." And they said, "No, he's not." So I got out my car and went back inside, and he was asleep. And it dawned on me when I realized he was in the house that the first time I woke him up, he was on my bed, and I was like, "Come on, it's time to go, let's go." And he was like, "All right." So I thought that he went in the car, but he actually went back into the kids' room and laid down. He had worked that day. He'd worked several days up to this date, and so he was tired, and then they had been having drinks and, just hanging out and doing the most that people do, during those holiday times. They were just hanging out and stuff, and then he, I guess, got sleepy and went and laid down. When I went into the room to wake him up, I actually thought for a split second not to wake him. I mean, something just went over me and was like, don't just leave him sleep. But then I thought, if he wakes up and we're all in Hendersonville, he's going to be pretty mad that we left him. So I woke him up. We got in the car. We got down to his grandma's house, his dad, his aunties, and, his dad's family all together there. We hung out. Everybody hung out there. And then they had decided that they wanted to go to this party that was at the Orchard Bar and Grill. And so Elijah was asking everybody, let's go hang out, which is what we did. Like, if we were all done for the week of working and we decided to hang out, they would ask me, like, "Mom, you want to come with us and have a drink and stuff?" And I would go, because it was more of, I can make sure they made it home safe. They can make sure I made it home safe. So that's what we would do. Every once in a while, like, they would call, like, "Mom, you want to go out with us?" And I would go. And this particular night would have been like any other night. I would have went. But because I was so tired and had cooked for 2 days, I was just like, we're probably going to go out for 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'm going to go home. Well, his sister had just had a baby that she actually named after him a month before this all happened. And she was like, we'll go out together and have a drink, and then we'll go home. Well, when we got loaded up into the cars to go back to Buncombe County, instead of going to my mom's house, we went back to Buncombe County, and she went to her house, I went to my house, and she decided that she didn't want to go out. And so I was like, well, she's not going, I'm not going. And by then Elijah was calling me like, "Hey, Mom, are you still going out?" And I said, "I don't want to go out. I'll go if you come back to town. I'll go with you, but I'm probably going to chill." And he goes, "Okay." He said, "But me and Shay are going to go to the Orchard for a little while, about an hour and a half." And he said, "Then I'm going to come back to Buncombe County and we'll swing by and get you." And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Are you going to go out?" I said, "Well, if I do, I'm probably just going to go in Buncombe County. I'm just going to go down there and see what's going on and then go back home." That's when he said to me, he said, "Mama, if you're going to go out, go get my gun, because he was saying that you're not going to be able to defend yourself. I'm not going to be able to defend you if I'm not with you." And I said, "You know what? Everybody that is down here is down there. So I'm not worried about anybody doing anything to me, because all the people that would be trying to do all the weirdness and fight and do all that craziness, is that going to be at that party, And so he said, "Mama, you're not listening to me. I just don't want nothing to happen to you. I can't get to you. I can't do anything if somebody does something to you." And the reason why he was saying that was because some girls had jumped me a couple months prior to this. Just, they needed somebody to target and pick on and make a spectacle out of. And apparently I was too old and shouldn't be out and shouldn't be free to do what I want to do. And it was just a mess, And so that was why he was saying it, because he's like, "I don't want you to go by yourself." And I was like, I'm good over here. So I get to back to my house. He makes that phone call to me, and then I doze off on my bed. that conversation with my son was recorded on my Ring cam. And I say that so that I can tell you about why that was important. I doze off, and then I feel my phone vibrating, and I look down and I see this, my daughter's phone, and I'm assuming it's 2:30ish. I'm assuming she's just calling me to say, hey, did you go out? Are you okay? Because normally that's about the time we talk and make sure everybody's back home safe or whatever. So I ignored it almost at first, and then someone told me to answer it, so I answered it, and it was my daughter on the phone screaming, and she's like, Mama, get up, get dressed, get up, get dressed now, it's due, get up. And I'm like, what? And she was like, get up and get dressed, let's go. And I said, she's like, please Mama, just get dressed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm still trying to get my bearings from being woke up like that, and I was kind of in shock anyways, because being woke up like that is enough to rattle you. But it was actually the same time I got the phone call, my son was in the car wreck. So I was just my body was just responding nervously about it. Then I looked down and Shay is calling my phone. So then I knew that it was serious when I seen her calling, because I knew that she was with my son. I answer her and she's screaming on the phone, Trish, please, please, please. And she's saying, oh my God, and all these things. And then somebody took the phone from her and said, Trish, you need to get here now. He's still breathing. He still has a pulse. And so I'm like, it just wasn't making sense. I couldn't understand what that meant, you know? So nobody said actually that he had been shot, ever. They just said, you need to get here. And I said, well, I hear the ambulance. Where's the police? I mean, I hear the sirens. Where's the police? And she goes, the police are here. And I said, where's the ambulance? And she said, they're not here. And I said, well, what are the police doing? And she said, nothing. So I'm literally in Candler when I first get the first phone call. I jump in as soon as I hang up the phone, I just start screaming. Like I was driving to Hendersonville, just flying, trying to get to the scene that I knew was the Orchard Bar and Grill. I'm on the phone with my daughter. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what happened. I'm just screaming, trying to get there. And everybody started calling me from social media platforms, calling my phone. I mean, people are just calling and calling and calling. And so, I wanted to stay on the phone with Shay, which is the girlfriend that was actually with him. But some other girl at the time was taking her phone. And she was just saying that, he was still breathing, he had a pulse, and I needed to get there. And I said to her, where's the police? And she said, they're just standing here. I said, where's the ambulance? And she said, I don't know. And I said, what's going on? And she was like, they're just standing here, they're not doing anything. So that was my mindset while I'm doing 120 trying to get there. When I get to the exit 49 is the Hendersonville exit. I veer off the exit, and you have to go up the exit and come up to the stop sign, to the light. And as I make it to the light, I see his dad's number pop up on my phone, and I'm knowing he's there because he's 5 minutes away from the club from where his grandma lives. So I knew that he was already there. I didn't want to talk to him because I knew I was getting ready to see him. So I tried to swipe the call, but when I did, it answered it. And he was saying, Trish, they just threw a sheet over our kid. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm on the phone, I'm on the other line, and somebody's saying he's breathing, he has a pulse. I mean, everybody that knows anything knows that when somebody pull out a sheet, what that means. And so I'm trying to connect the dots, honestly. Like, it didn't make sense. It just was the oddest statement anybody could make in that moment, because I'm thinking, I'm on the phone and somebody's saying, get here, he's got a pulse. And so I'm like 2.5 blocks away, and I just gun it all the way there. And when I pull up in the parking lot, I get around to the back of the parking lot, and I see my son under the sheet, and his hand is out. One of his hands is out, and his head is half covered. So I'm not knowing, because of all the chaos, all the lights and people and, all the stuff, I'm not knowing if my son moved and nobody's recognizing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't think any other way. And so I jump out of my truck, I run towards him, and as soon as I get literally a foot away, I'm surrounded by, I don't know how many police officers. I mean, literally surrounded by them. And all I can remember feeling was those bulletproof vests that they have on. They were like all the way around my body. Like I could just feel all their chest pressed against my body. And I'm telling them, you know, I'm his mom and I want to check him. I want to check on my child. I want to check his pulse. And there it was like they were like, no, you're not going to check his pulse. You can't go over there. And I was saying, I am going to go over there. This is my child. So I start trying to like get up a run to head over to him. And when I did, I just remember being slammed so hard, it knocked the wind out of me. Like, I mean, all the breath out of me was just knocked out. And then there's, I don't know how many people on my back. I mean, they were on my back. They were grabbing my arms and roughly pulling them behind my body. I mean, just like I couldn't resist because I didn't even know what was happening. So it's not that I'm trying to fight you and trying to stop you. I'm just not knowing what's happening. Like, how do I get on the ground like this? And then my arms are being yanked and pulled so bad that it's burning in my joints. Like, I'm just feeling it burn. Like, the more they yanked, the more they pulled. And all I'm saying is, like, why are y'all doing this? What in the world? Like, that is my child. Like, why am I being arrested? You know? And so they were just like talking and screaming and talking crazy. And I'm just like going crazy too at this point because I'm not being able to breathe. I start feeling like, oh my God, I can't breathe. You know, I'm screaming, I'm his mom until I can't say that anymore. And it turned into, I can't breathe. And so I start screaming, I can't breathe. And next thing I know, I just felt like glitter was bouncing all over my face. And then black. It was just all black. I remember in that moment thinking, I'm going to die right here. Like, I'm going to die right here. You know, he's dead and I'm going to die right here. You know, just a minute of just that horror of thinking I'm going to die. You know what I'm saying? And before I realized, where I could make sense of reality of it, I heard somebody say, oh, she can't breathe. She can't breathe. Turn her over. And so then I was flipped over. And then the next thing I realized was that I was naked from the waist till about mid of my thigh, where I had been dragged across the parking lot in handcuffs and sat less than a foot away from my son. So I'm seeing him. And at this point, I don't see any blood. I just see, you know, his hand and his head. And so I think that trying to make sense in that moment was just, I wasn't able to make sense of that. I wasn't able to make sense of, is this reality? Is this a dream that I'm in? Am I just really thought that I was in like some form of a deep sleep. And I'm waiting to wake up because at this point it's like I can't get to my son. I can't get up because my knee is bad and I've been slammed on the ground. So then it started making sense that when I realized that this was not a dream, it was because my bare bottom was on the cold pavement. And I realized from just that cold coming up through my body that this was real. Like that's when I realized that it was real, that, you know, and so I start trying to crawl to my son from being handcuffed behind, and I had no I didn't have any reason to worry about dignity or anything that you might have you would think like I'm naked. I'm sitting out here. It's all kinds of people out here. Especially when you're a person that has always been self-conscious about your weight and all those things, that just none of that stuff really registered to me. It was all about getting to Elijah. So I was asking, hey, can I put my foot on his wrist? Just let me check his pulse. Just let me check his pulse. And they were like, you can't touch him. He's a crime scene. And all the things that I wouldn't say to a parent was being said to me. They finally got to a part where they snatched me up off the ground and was dragging me towards a police car, and I'm screaming and asking, like, why am I being taken to jail? Why am I being put in a police car? Like, that's, it just didn't make sense. It didn't register why this was even happening. When they got me to the police car, they were telling me that I'm making it worse. Just get in the police car. And I'm like, I'm not getting in the police car. I want to check on my child. And they were like just dragging me. By then I'm going past all three of my children. I'm going past the twin, and I'm going past my middle daughter. She's collapsed on the ground. My middle daughter has just collapsed on the ground, and she's screaming and crying. And the other one was walking around like, why are y'all doing this to my mama? Let her go. And that's my brother, and da 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 da. So she's screaming all that stuff. And I'm really, honest to God, feeling like I'm in just a dream. Like, it just felt so surreal. Like, it felt like it was nothing real. I mean, it was just so horrific it couldn't be real, like this have to be something that is imagining, I've imagined, or it's got to be a dream, So I'm steady trying to make sense out of it when I was drugged to the police car, and then they started taking their elbows and knees and trying to push me into the police car to get me to go into the car. And mind you, I'm facing them, so my body's not going to fold, you know what I'm saying? I can't bend, so it was just a lot of aggression, unnecessarily aggression, to mush me, to push me, and to fold me up into the car. So once they got me into the car, I just remember while they were pushing me so hard that when they got the door to where they could shut the door, they bounced off the car. That's how rough they were treating me. My daughter was screaming like, that's her, my mama let her out of that car. Her child was on the ground. And I just remember one of them taking her and slinging her across the parking lot. There's no regard for who we were. There was no humanity at all in that. I mean, at the lowest point, a person is at a scene where their child has been harmed, and you have family members that are there. You should be treating them with every ounce of compassion that you can draw out of your body. You know what I'm saying? We all have had jobs where we just get burnt out and tired, but there was not one human person out there that could say, hey, yo, this is too much. Like, we should not be, no one person stood up and said this, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Not one of them. They were cold, callous, human beings. I mean, I know you're desensitized to a certain degree. I get it. But there was no cause for that. I mean, no kind of call somebody to talk to these family members, sit down and calm them and try to be, respectful and loving to them. I mean, for God's sakes, I'm sitting here and my child is under a sheet. And my other kids are screaming and hollering because we're all going through trauma. And you don't see nothing wrong with the way you're treating us and talking to us, let alone the rest of the people out there. I mean, there's people out there, they're knocking them down and threatening to tase them. And I mean, you're making the scene chaotic instead of de-escalating all the stuff that's going out here. I mean, you literally could have de-escalated that scene and got all the information that you would have needed to do the proper investigation. And instead, that's what I didn't recognize from the beginning, that was what was being set up. It was meant to continue to look chaotic so that they can have an excuse for not doing their job. And I say that not to use it as an excuse, but to just be totally honest with going forward with everything that I'm about to tell you, that this is why this was done in this manner, that it was all from the jump. It was That was just what it was. We were animals. We were not human people. We didn't deserve respect or regard. And that was their attitude. That was their facial expressions. That was their intent. That was the entire atmosphere there. And people knew it. And they were recording it, and they was putting it on live social media, and they were showing how they were acting with us. They really were. And I think that when you know that you're being recorded doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and you still do it, it shows a comfortability that they have with breaking the law. You know?
It doesn't apply to them.
It doesn't apply to them. And so you take me to jail. I'm in the jail. There are people, I'm screaming, like, please, 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 let me check on my child. I mean, that's all I could think of. Like, take me back. What am I doing here? Why am I being arrested? We don't know why you're being arrested. We don't know why am I being detained? I don't know why you're being detained. The officer that brought you here left you here, and we got to wait for him to come back and tell us why you're here. You can't hold me if you don't have a reason to be holding me. Let me go. Well, we have to wait on him. I mean, this was hours of this while I'm chanting and begging and pleading. I got I got my pants on, but they're just, they're in pajamas, and they're wiggled off of me because nobody could pull them up right, And so I'm screaming and hollering and asking them, like, what's going on? There's a couple people that came in from the scene that were released before me, and I'm thinking, why are they being released and I'm not? You know what I'm saying? This is my child. Let me loose, And I'm telling them, like, this is sickening. If this was a white guy, you would not be doing this. If I was a white mom, you would not be. I'm saying it to them, like, this is ridiculous, and y'all are wrong for this, And I think that I was agitating them, but I was purposely trying to get their attention, like, hey, she's right. We shouldn't be doing all this, And not one of them there thought, this is wrong. They just disappeared, where it was 5, 6, 8 people, like, oh my God, listen to this woman. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm begging them, please let me go check on my child. Please give me an update on my baby. Please tell me what's going on. Please tell me what happened. Just tell me what I need to do to get out of here. Give me a bond and let me go. Let me go check on my family. And it was, you need to shut up or you're going to be here. There was one officer came in. Some girl had been knocked out or something out there, and she had this big